Hi everyone, I'm Paul Wilson and I make YouTube videos about Adobe Captivate and other e-learning topics. If you like what I do here, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like this video, and share it with your colleagues that you think might benefit by what we're talking about here today. So what we are talking about here today is the all-new Adobe Captivate Update 12.4. And we're specifically going to focus on the features that relate to the appearance of your e-learning project, the objects that are on your slide, the components, the blocks, and how you can work with the slide. And again, some of the new features that are in 12.4 really help out with that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop screen here so you can see what I'm looking at the same time that I'm working with it here. I had a client of mine reach out to me and they had some great concern over, the layout of their slides. They were really struggling to try and get some of the content to fit on a traditional slide as we think of it. And I think Adobe Captivate 12.4 addresses some of those concerns here. So I'm running 12.4. I've been running it for a little while now. I'm one of the beta testers for it, which is a lot of fun for me. But it also gives me a head start, so I can share some of that information when this version goes live. If you haven't updated your copy of Adobe Captivate yet, just click on the Help drop-down menu and check for updates. And you'll see this little very vertical-looking item appear, and it will check. It's not going to find any for me because I've already gone through this. But you would see a message here that would, indicate, hey, there's a new version, go ahead and update it. And it'll then prompt you to close your copy of Adobe Captivate to install that new update. But I'll go ahead and close this here. I don't need anything there, so we'll just quit that. Now, so a couple of things that, one of the things that I think really jumped out at me as a new feature, and at first I wasn't sure how to use it, but the ability now, when we went into project properties in Adobe Captivate 12.3 or earlier, we saw a very different display. So the default for your project, it was always 1366 by 768. This stuff here is new, and I'll explain that in a second. But if I was to create some content, let's just pick a generic piece of content here and select that. And if we were to preview this, we would see 1366 by 768, and that's what we're seeing here essentially. But there's the content there, and it's not really going to fill the browser viewport, and that might be something you want to do. So let's get rid of this here, and I can change this. You can select one of the defaults, so you can make it smaller if you expect people with smaller desktop screens to use your course, or you can go full screen, or you can even type in a custom set of numbers. So like if I was to go to my browser here, and let's just open a new browser tab, and I'll bring it in here. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll go to how big is my browser.com and just get the numbers here. So this is 1920 by 911. If you wanted to keep your e-learning course to maximize or fill the browser space here, you certainly could do that. You can just type in those values here. So this would be 1920 by 911, and that way you can really fill the screen if necessary. Now you'll see that there's also this new piece here called Content Display. And you can choose either fixed, which is sort of the default fix that you're going to see with most of your projects as you create them, or you can choose proportional and adjust this slider to either take up less of your browser viewport or maximize, fill it right up to 100% there. And that's going to give you certain advantages as well, especially if you've got a lot of content to display. The only thing I'll say about this is that when I've done this already, Sometimes the spacing or the padding between objects can be a little exaggerated and it just looks like everything's stretched out too much. But you can play around with this, play around with your desktop size, play around with the content display. There's some good little information here. So this preview, how the content will adapt to different screen sizes or display with fixed dimensions there. So you can choose. I would stick with proportional, but you can kind of set that maximum. I don't want it to be any greater than, let's say, 90%. I want still some space around my e-learning project. But whatever makes sense for your project, and again, experiment with this and see how it works there. So let's get out of here. Let's go back to our visual properties inspector here. And, maybe for the purposes of this, I'll just return this back to the default there because this might throw me off. I'm not sure here, but we can go fixed for now. And let's go back to visual properties here. And one of the concerns that this particular client of mine had was that, when they added, let's say, a media block, such as a video grid, with even just a single video on it, and once they added their button block to take care of navigation, they were spilling into, into the scrolling territory. And I think part of that is just you have to expect that a certain amount of content is going to force your slides to be larger than just the normal height of a slide. That's going to happen. The more content you put on the slide, it's got to go somewhere. Back in Classic, when we were doing non-responsive design projects, that was really limiting because the only option really for you was to reduce the font size, and then it becomes, an issue of usability. But now, of course, if you've got lots of text that you want to give them, not that I recommend that. That's not always the best way to design e-learning, of course. But if you have a lot of information to convey to your learner, maybe the possibility of a scrolling slide is definitely going to come into play here. But here's kind of what my particular client was running into problems with. So we're going to add a media block to this slide here. We're going to use the video grid, as it's sometimes called, which is essentially asynchronous video. In other words, it does not go in time with the slide. It plays on its own and it has its own duration and so forth here. So let's get this down to one item here, one video. And if I select the content here and open up the alignment and spacing, this is going to look a little different right off the bat here. There is this new option for auto layout. And if you hover over this little eye information icon, this tells you that if this is enabled, the padding in all directions changes proportionately across different devices. So that's something to keep in mind as you're building your slide here. Now, I'm going to leave these settings more or less where they are. If you choose auto fit height, which might be your instinct, it really doesn't deal with the size of the video. In fact, that's not very attractive looking at all. Let me unselect auto fit height. I'm going to use it again in a few moments, but let's just deal with that a little bit differently. Now, in this example, I kind of like one of the other design options, even though at first glance it doesn't look that great. But I'm going to select this video grid design option 1. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to uncheck auto fit height. It adds this rounded card kind of in the background of your video, but it becomes part of the video as well. And I'm also going to unselect the title, the body, but we'll keep that card. And maybe one of the things we can do to make it a little more interesting is we can select a card color that's just going to blend right into the video there. You see that? I'm going to unselect linear gradient background because I just want the background as it is. In fact, before we move forward, let me click outside of here and I'm going to select a background image because my client in this case actually had a background image in their version of this slide here. And I'm just going to grab something from the assets library here. So let's scroll down till we find a nice, almost muted background image. Let's choose this one here and replace image. So that becomes the background of our slide there. It's already blurred out, so normally I would add like a blur, but I don't know if it's needed in this case here. But I'm gonna give it a more muted look by reducing the opacity of it there. So in this case here, I'm going to add a button block, which is what the client in question was using as well. And we'll keep it fairly simple. I will put 2 buttons on this slide. And so I don't have to spend a lot of time, developing it. I will just quickly choose the infographic type buttons there. And we'll change the layout to distribute the buttons uniformly there. And again, the instinct is to always just click on auto fit height, but you can see the problem with that. But before you do that, let's drag this out. And you see the effect that we're having here. We're actually filling that space with our image, but I'm not going to quite go to 100%, just sort of before it there. Now I'm going to select the block for my video, go into alignment and spacing, and now I'm going to select auto fit height. And what that does, it keeps the button block the same size, but it forces this block to use up the remainder of the slide. So you can see it really does kind of fit and fill the space quite nicely. Now, of course, I can replace that image, or in this case, rather a video, with something that would be, I'm just going to use something from the assets library, but it could be a video that's on your system as well there, and this will work quite nicely here. So if I preview this, and I just want to point out my monitor in this case here is 1920 by 1080, so pretty standard stuff here. And I'm not using any scaling. I think I'm at 100% here. And if we bring this over and preview that, I would probably turn off the play bar. I prefer my own controls here, but this looks pretty good. And of course, when we play the video, it runs well. The experience for someone on a tablet is they're going to get a more tall and narrow view. Unfortunately, video is not responsive design, so you'll end up with some black areas above and below your image here. And of course, this is kind of saying I'm going to need to scroll in this case here. So that's definitely going to be an impact. Same thing here for mobile phone. So let's exit out of that. Let's try a few things that might make this interesting. So let's go into our project properties. Let's go into proportional, and let's use the full browser viewport. And in fact, we can even select 1920 by 1080 as an option here. Everything's going to get a little smaller when I do that because I'm obviously using a much larger image here. But maybe what we can do is kind of play around with that auto fit height thing again and get a nice big large video. And we'll go back into alignment and spacing and turn on auto fit height yet again. Let's preview this once more. And see now, of course, it fills the whole area here. And yeah, this is going to force me to scroll a little bit, but the advantage is that I'll also have the scrolling for tablet and for smartphone as well. But this is going to utilize my real estate quite effectively. And when I watch these videos, I'll be able to watch them. One thing people don't realize is that you can go full screen on those videos. Actually go full screen and then give you the whole monitor to view your videos as well. So there's some really great stuff that you can do. And it almost doesn't matter, how tall that is. So if you decide maybe you don't need that full height or that full amount here, you can go back to fixed and maybe change your resolution back to 1366. And I've by accident and kind of created one of the new things that 12.4 does. When you are seeing a project that its size exceeds that one slide screen size, you'll see this little dotted line across here, and that's just letting you know, hey, this is going to spill into scroll territory here. So we can go back to visual properties, we can open up the alignment and spacing here, and we can resize this so that that line goes away. And now it's done so there. And then we can turn our auto fit height back on, and this should give us a little bit different view once again, a lot of this is going to be playing around with stuff until you figure out what works best for your situation there. I like this. This looks good to me, and this is probably what I would use moving forward for this sort of slide here. But I think, so the challenge that we face is that we are running into the issue that sometimes the amount of content that you're going to display will definitely impact, the amount of the height of the slide itself. And you will get into a scrolling situation there. This new padding control, let's create a new slide here. I wanted to focus on this because this is something that I think is going to be beneficial for folks as well. Let's use an image block here. And maybe what I'll do is I'll set this to be 80% width. So we have a clear, space around these objects here. And I'll replace this image with something from the assets library here. Maybe we'll choose this image here, replace that image, and now we're into something a little different. So with our blocks, you'll notice that we've got padding available for the block. So I can, the default here is based a little bit on the content width, so 80% width. Obviously, I've got 10% on either side. And you can set this up to be a certain number of pixels from the top and a certain number of pixels from the bottom in that block. And that's been available for some time now. That's not necessarily new. What is new, though, is that now I can have a little bit more padding control between the components within a block. So, for example, if I have this image here, if I select this image, and I hover over the edges of this image, you'll see these new pink selection handles appear, above, below, and on either side. And if I click that, I can create a little bit extra padding around this image. And I can do the same thing for the edge here. Now, it works a little like it's not quite as intuitive as you might think. Your instinct might be to click and then drag to the left to increase that, but actually we're always dragging either top to bottom or left to right to increase that padding. So again, we would add some padding here, and you can do the same thing up top here, and that's going to increase a little bit of padding. This is really useful, I think, if you are working with a logo, a company logo that requires safety space. So you've got the company brand logo, and you know that you need 10% on all sides. You can do that using these selection handles. I think the selection handles are a little rough. So what you can do is you can open up alignment and spacing, and you can see here I've got 34, 34, 30, and 38 pixels. If you need them all to be the same, you can type them in manually and just make sure they're all equidistant. Or you can select this icon and just do it once for all sides simultaneously. So that gives you a little bit more control. But this isn't limited to just images. You can actually do the same thing with other components as well. So if I want the title to have more space, not only from the image, but maybe the text below it, I can do the same thing here. So I could either use those very same selection handles to increase that And the only thing to keep in mind is that your left edge might go out of alignment with other objects that are on the slide there, but you can really have a lot greater control here. And we can just do the same thing I did before by selecting this item here and then just typing in a number. So 20 pixels, for example. And I could do the same thing with the text below here. So we could go 20 pixels, and now we've got a lot more space that we're working with, the safety space, as you were. And, you know, this works for just about everything as far as I've seen so far. This is new for me too, but, oh, and as a bonus, by the way, for those who didn't watch the webinar today, the number of buttons that you can have in a button block has increased all the way up to 10. I don't need that right now, but that might be beneficial. And again, you can set up your button blocks to have their own padding around them as well. So I could add, you know, make this 30, and it has the effect of making the button much larger than it was otherwise. I found this to be quite useful if my button image or the button background is going to be an image. So if I wanted this to be, instead of some text on it, I can actually go into change the solid fill to an image. We can pull something from our assets library here. Let's choose something maybe just kind of interesting here, like, I don't know. Let's find something. Just an interesting background color, something like that might be kind of cool. So now you have this image effect and you can really see it, whereas if this was a smaller button, it wouldn't be so easy to notice that sort of granite effect that's there. If I increase this, and like one of the things is that you might be experiencing, like, you know, hey, well, what if I have a whole bunch of these buttons to do like that? You certainly can right click this, copy the appearance, and apply the appearance on other buttons as well, including that padding. So you can really quickly, even though you can't really save a button as part of your theme, you can very quickly apply those visual changes across a wide number of buttons. So it's really fairly easy to do. But again, you know, you can look for this this indicator that we're pulling into another slide here. Let's go up to the top here. Click Auto Fit Height on the largest object on your slide, and it should get everything to fit nicely on a single slide here. So let's take a look at this slide and see how this comes out for us here. That looks good. So we got our buttons across the bottom here. We've got lots of space between all of our components, and I think the layout works well. And of course, you'll get a similar experience with the different devices. So that looks nice. That's pretty much what I was going to share today. Those couple of features, the padding of your components, you know, the improvement to indicating whether your slide is going to push beyond a single slide of content, and what you can do about it, how you can work with this stuff to make it all fit. But, you know, I just wanted to give everyone a chance to see some of the things that you can do. There's no secret formula for always getting all content to fit, because the truth of the matter is that a lot of it depends on how much content you're trying to put on a single slide. You know, you can't just get the Encyclopedia Britannica to fit on a slide. It's just not going to happen. So you have to make decisions like, how do I break up the content into smaller chunks? Maybe I use like some of the click to reveals that are available in the widgets that are available in Adobe Captivate, or maybe you can use some of the advanced interactions that I've built where you can create your own click to reveals with audio narration and all that good stuff there. But, you know, I'll just open it up maybe to some questions. If anyone has any questions before we finish out today, we'll just spend a couple moments doing that. So if you want to type your question in the chat there, I'll try to address any questions that you've had. And it doesn't necessarily have to be what I covered here today, but we can certainly address each question. I've got Captivate 12.4 running right in front of me here, and we can try some stuff out and see what people have to ask here. Some of the comments, I'm just looking at some of the comments that have come through here. John saying, really impressed with Adobe keeping their promise to provide us with significant updates every quarter or so. And I would agree with John. I think that was a promise that was made early in the development cycle of Adobe Captivate 12.4. And they've been good about that. You know, I think this one here, we're coming in around the 4-month range since 12.3, but still pretty acceptable that we're getting new features, new capabilities. I had a video come out today for those that are keeping track of the things that I do on the new random question slide. So I won't show you that here today, but if you check out my other recently released videos, you'll see that I've covered the whole concept of question pools and how you can create a quiz that, you know, that you see a random set of questions every time you run the quiz. And the good news is, by the way, here's a bonus. One thing people wanted with Classic, and they never got it, was the ability to have a random quiz every time the learner retook the quiz. Well, now that's available. So Adobe Captivate 12.4 you know, has that capability as well. A big ask that we never got in Classic now is available for us in the all-new Adobe Captivate. So it doesn't look like there are any other questions. So today, I think what we'll do is I'll just thank everyone for joining me here today. And, you know, I'm going to try and do some more live streams in the future, especially when there's a big announcement and I don't have time to prepare a proper video. But, you know, today we certainly have a little bit extra content to share with you. So I'm happy to do that. Thanks, everyone.
If you thought this video was helpful, please like and share it with your colleagues. If you need help with Adobe Captivate, hire Paul for one-on-one instruction. Paul's goal is to focus on lessons based on your specific needs. Visit his website at captivateteacher.com